a deeper spiritual look at Deuteronomy 28, verse 39, and other verses in Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter. Shalom. First and foremost, giving all praises, honor, glory, respect, and blessings to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rachakwadash. Salutations to the Lord's elect on the four corners of the earth, pushing this truth and sincerity while patiently waiting for Yahweh Shai's return. And double honors to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone, which have taught us everything we know through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai. And I wanted to share a little something with you brothers, especially something I was meditating upon while I was at work. And it had me thinking about the verse in Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter, where the Lord said that thou shalt plant vineyards and dress them, but shalt neither drink of the wine nor gather the grapes, for the worms shall eat them. And while I was at work thinking about these things, I was thinking about, how, because of course Deuteronomy 28 verse 39, is talking about when we were in slavery, when the Edomites, which is the self-proclaimed white man, had us in slavery. Okay, when he had us in slavery, he he had us planting vineyards. Okay, and if you don't know what a vineyard is, a vineyard is basically like what you see on a farm, which I can just look that up for you real quick. Okay, so let's go to Google, right? Let's go to images, and then let's type in vineyards. Okay, this is what we were planting during the time of slavery. Okay, you see this right here, and there was various different types of vineyards. Okay, you had vineyards or vineyards of grapes, you had vineyards of corn, you had vineyards of fruits, potatoes, vineyards of cotton, tobacco, you name it. Okay, so this is what we were planting on the plantations, all the toiling and the digging. That's what we were going through during the time of slavery. So we were planting vineyards. Okay, we were dressing them, meaning we were plucking them off the plants. We were putting them in baskets, but it said that, but thou shalt not drink of the wine, nor gather the grapes, meaning that we're not going to be able to eat of the grapes either, for the worms shall eat them. Meaning what? Who's going to enjoy the fruit of the vineyards? The slave master is. Him, his family, his wife, his cousins. You see? Now, the reason why I say that there's a deeper spiritual meaning behind this is because the question is, can Deuteronomy 28 verse 39 be applied to today's time, the times that we are currently living in? And the answer is yes, it can. Because the modern day vineyards today will be what? These different jobs that we work at. Okay? Now, there's particular jobs that would spiritually be considered as you planting a vineyard, such as if you work at a restaurant, you might work at a deli department at Walmart, you might work in a chef's kitchen. And an example of you planting a vineyard, especially if you're a cook, is you're cooking, you're seasoning the food. You see that? You're seasoning the food. You're shaking the fries in the fry basket. You're dumping it back in the hot grease. you're cooking and serving all this fish, right? And you're making all these delicious salads. You're cutting up all these cakes. You're the one. You're baking the cakes. You're smashing down on the dough. You're making the pizza. Okay. And it says dress them, right? Like dress them, meaning you might season them up a bit. You might add some salt. But it says, but thou but shalt neither drink of the wine nor the grapes, for the worms shall eat them. Okay. And an example of, like you plant a vineyard, right? You're planting vineyards, meaning you're working hard to cook all this food. You're doing all the dough making. You're putting the chocolate droplings. You're doing all the stuff, right? But it said that thou shalt not drink nor eat of the grapes. Now you know what it means by thou shalt not drink nor eat of the grapes. That's talking about food waste, okay? Because it's very, very common that at restaurants, right, there'll be all this extra food left over. Okay? All this extra food. Food that you can take home to feed your family. Food that you can take home to feed yourself. But guess what? If you're caught eating that food at the job, you get written up. You possibly get fired. You get in deep trouble. So it's the exact same thing today. When the slaves were out in the vineyards on the plantations, planting the vines and gathering the grapes and all that, okay, it was a well-known fact that if a slave was caught eating of the grapes, if he was caught eating apples, because when you're out in the vineyard and you're plucking and you're carrying all these fruits and stuff back to the plantation, that will be considered as you being at work, right? So if you were caught doing these things, you were whipped, you were beaten, probably tortured. Okay, they would lay you down on a board, tie you up, and then they'll have a slave doo-doo in your mouth, and then they'll put a device on your head to make sure that you couldn't gag or throw up the feces that was in your mouth. So you went through brutal punishment if you was caught eating while working. So again, some of these jobs you might work at, such as restaurants, you might be a chef, you might work at a pizzeria, you might work at a deli department, and there's all this food left over that you can clearly put in the tray. All this food left over that you could bring home to feed your parent, that you can feed your parents, you can feed your daughter, your sons, you can feed your grandparents, you can feed a family. But if they catch you eating that food while you're on the job, you get written up, you probably get fired, you get a bad reputation. So all that food that's left over that did not sell, instead of you being able to take it home, it goes right in the trash. So here it is, right? We work hard to cook all this food, and we don't get to enjoy not a single one of it. It has to go straight to the trash. And I've witnessed that a couple of times at my job because I work in a chef kitchen, and I've been on the pastry, I've been to the fry station, and I mean where I work at is a pretty fancy place. They serve pretty top grade food there, but it's like they're throwing out whole entire haddocks. You're throwing out an entire tray of haddocks, something that we all can take home and enjoy with some tartar sauce and some ketchup and mustard. But no, it's got to go straight to the trash. So here it is. We're planting the vineyards, right? Where we're cooking the food, we're flipping the dough, we're deep frying, the food in batter, we're dumping all the chicken, we're chopping up all the onions, the tomatoes, the lettuce. We're making all these Caesar salads. We're making all these chef salads, but any of the food that's left over, guess what? We don't get to eat nor drink of it. Because technically, the food that you cook, that you make, you're supposed to be able to eat for free. You cooked it, right? But that further proves that we are slaves in this society. You see? Because according to Esau's rules, if his food is left over, you know, even though the business is closed, all the food is left over, it did not sell. If you're caught eating it, they say they will consider it as you're stealing. Like what? You're going to throw it out into the trash. So you would rather it go in the trash than to go in somebody's stomach. But you see, this is why, let me get that in Proverbs, you see? So, you know, again, well, we planted the vineyards, right? We cooked, we made the food, right? We seasoned it up, dressed them, meaning we seasoned it up, right? But shall neither drink of the wine nor gather the grapes. So we don't even get to enjoy the food we make. We cook it and it goes right out to the customers who paid for it, right? But all the food is left over that did not sell, it just goes right in the trash. But let's go to Proverbs, right? 29. And this is the society we live in, you know. It's the same thing you work when you work at a clothing department, you know. You worked hard to sew the clothes and da 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 da, but you don't even get to take any clothes home for free that was left over. You don't get to enjoy the fruit of your labor. And that's basically what Deuteronomy 28 verse 39 is going into. You're going to labor hard for you know, to get the fruit of the earth, but you're not going to enjoy it. Proverbs 29 and 2. When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. But when the wicked bear rule, the people mourn. Now, let's go to, because the scriptures speak about muzzling the ox. I think that's Malachi, the 3rd chapter. Thou shalt not muzzleth the ox that treadeth, because an ox, no, that's Deuteronomy 25 verse 4. Let's get Deuteronomy 25 verse 4. Okay, so it's Deuteronomy, I thought it was in Malachi, so excuse me, forgive me for that. Deuteronomy 25 verse 4, it says, thou shalt not muzzle the ox when he treadeth out the corn. Okay, because an ox, when he's treading the corn, what is he doing? He's working. And when an ox is working, that requires energy. But how do you think the ox get his energy? It's through food. So sometimes an ox might eat some of the corn, in the field. But that's his way of replenishing himself. That's his way of replenishing himself, you see. But you see, these devils, the so-called, the self-proclaimed white man, he does the opposite of this. When a person is working hard back there, he won't let you have not even a pea. I'm talking about like the green peas that come in the can. He won't even let you have a drop of a pea unless you pay for it. And what if you just starting off working, right? And you might be broken. You cannot even afford lunch. You got to basically work on an empty stomach. And then that's just a terrible situation to be in. So this devil, he will literally muzzle the ox. In which, when you look at Deuteronomy 25 verse 4, the ox can metaphorically be talking about the worker as well. If somebody is working for you, you're supposed to feed them, man. But these devils don't. They don't feed their employees, man. All they want is your service to profit their business, and that's really what it boils down to. You see, okay. So let's skip over Deuteronomy 28 verse 40, right? Okay. Deuteronomy 28 verse 42, it says, all thy trees and fruit of thy land shall the locust consume. You see that? Shall the locust consume. And who's the locust? Well, the locust is talking about the Edomites. Okay? That's talking about the self-proclaimed white man, the Edomites, okay? Okay, all the trees and the fruit of thy land, okay? That means what? We don't own any of the fruit on this land anymore. We don't own any of the grapes. We don't own anything. So that means that Esau could put a patent on it, and he could say, if anybody eats this without my permission, fire them. Boom, right there. No mercy. Fire them. You know? So it's like, you know, it's like when it's like when you're working, you gotta wait damn near a whole week just to get a check. You know? Otherwise, you got to be dependent on the food in your house. You know, you probably got to bring your own lunch. Like, you see what I mean? And it's just a messed up situation, man. Okay, the trees and the fruit of thy land shall the locust consume. And again, an example of this, right, is when, you know, you back there, you're cooking all the food, you're working hard, and you're seasoning it and all that other stuff, but guess who's consuming the food that you worked hard to make? The heathens are, because where I work at, we get a lot of traffic of heathens. I'm talking about Arabs, Ham, East Indians, Chinese and Japanese people, okay, Hawaiians. Now you might have a tiny little bit of Jakes who might come by here and there. I mean, which Jake don't really have a luxury to eat at a fancy place like that, you know. But you know, it's heathens for the most part, you know, and they're the ones that's you know, you back there, you busting your ass, you're sweating, you know, you're doing all this other shit, but you know, the heathens. They're the ones that, you know, eat, especially Edomites. A lot of Amalek come there, you know, Amalekites, Amalek, Edomites. You know, they come there and they're just buying up all the food and eating it, you know, and it's like at the end of all of the ordeal, you're not even enjoying any of it. You see? So yeah, man, it's you. So you know, but of course, you know, Deuteronomy 28 verse 42 is talking about during the time of slavery. You know, all the fruit and the trees that was on this land when the Edomites, who would call themselves conquistadors and Spaniards, and you know, when they came over here to the Americas, man, they was just eating up all of our fruit and shit. Right after they put us into subjection, you know, they was just eating up the fruit of our land. Okay, okay, and then check this out, Deuteronomy 28 verse 44, right? He shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head. Now you gotta understand the gravity of what it means to be the head, because when you're the head, that means you have ownership over a lot of things, if not everything. Okay, and guess what? The food that we cook, it's not even our food. We don't own that food. Even if we buy the food from the grocery store, we still don't own it, you know. And the proof that we don't own our own food when we buy it from the grocery store is the fact that it's already pre wrapped up in plastic, styrofoam, aluminum cans. You see? So it's not even our food. It's their food. And they said, look, if you want to buy our product, you got to buy it in whatever we wrap it up in. So if you want chicken, you're gonna have to buy it in our plastic. If you want green beans, you got to get it out of plastic. If you want cereal, you got to eat it with metal, and you got to buy it in plastic. You want better water than that of your tap than the water to come out of the sink in your home, then you're gonna have to buy it in plastic. Even though they do got some waters that come in cans. I believe Apostle Gabar mentioned that in his video. Particular waters that come in cans. Okay. So yeah, man, it's you know, and then on top of that, if he owns the food, then guess what? All that food that you're cooking back there, they better not catch you eating because you don't own that food. You didn't grow that food out. The head of this kingdom grew that food out for you. So if you're caught eating it, you know, and plus when you're the head, right, you can make up the rules. So, hey, if they say, look, we don't want them, da 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 da, and eating this and that, and we don't want to catch you with this and that, and blah blah blah. Well, guess what? Yeah, they better not catch you trying to eat what's supposed to be going in the trash behind their back, or you can get some serious trouble. You see? So he shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail. And the scriptures say what? The borrower is servant to the lender. So hey, at the end of the day, we're all slaves in this society, man. Okay. Let me see. So let's skip down to verse 51. Deuteronomy 28, verse 51. It says, "And he shall eat the fruit of thy cattle." Okay, and the cattle is a metaphor for the beasts that are lawful to eat. Okay, so the cattle don't necessarily have to just be talking about cow. Cattle could be talking about animals that are lawful to eat, such as ox, goat, lamb, venison, deer, buck, buffalo. You can also include lawful fish in there, such as haddock, sardines. You know, oh yeah, herrings, herrings. I don't know how they say it. Herrings, Herring. They're a particular fish with fins. Anchovies, tuna. You know, all these animals that are lawful to eat. Guess what? He's going to eat of it. You know. And guess what? Not only is he going to eat of the fruit of our cattle, but he's going to have ownership over it as well. And the fruit of thy land, what is the fruit of our land? Such as apples, oranges, potatoes, tomatoes, cotton, tobacco, gold, silver, that was taken from us as well. You see, linen, and the fruit of thy land, and all these things which we used to have ownership of. Now they have ownership of it, and if we're caught eating it on the job, then guess what? You get fired for it. Even though it's a whole bunch of food, right? The business is closed down. There's all this food left over, but you can't even enjoy the fruit of it, and that it goes back to the curses. Okay? You know, it all goes back to the curses. So, you know, they don't want you taking home food, you know. And if you're caught trying to take home food, guess what? You get fired, you know. They say that, you know, you was caught taking home $30 worth, but you know, like, wait a minute. You know, the business is closed down, you know, and it's about to just go in the trash. But, you know, like the scriptures say, obey them to have the rule over you, because this is not our kingdom, and that's why, like it says in Micah 2:10. Let's get Micah 2:10 real quick, okay? Micah chapter 2 verse 10, okay? Arise ye and depart, for this is not your rest. And that's why, you know, we got to hurry up and get out of here, because it is polluted. It shall destroy you even with a sore destruction. And then if we go to 2 Peter chapter 3 verse 13, it also says this: nevertheless, we according to his promise look for new heavens and a new earth wherein dwelleth righteousness. Because, you know, in the kingdom of heaven, you know, as Israelite men, we're not going to be cooking our own food. I mean, if we could choose to do so if we want to. We could choose to do so if we want to. But for the most part, we're not going to be cooking our own food, you know. I mean, because it's vexing. It's vexing when you work at a restaurant, you know. You're smelling all this delicious food, you know. All this delicious food. And it just smell good. And you're just like, fuck. You know, you can't take it home. You know, it's like, you know, and then they want you to pay for every fucking, because it's all a money making. It's all about money with these devils, you know. They don't, if you ain't paying for it, they don't want you eating it. Even though you worked hard for it. You worked your ass off in the kitchen, sweating, damn near 8 hours, 9 hours. They don't care. You see? But in the kingdom of heaven, we're going to have all the food our hearts desire, and then some. You know? And guess what? It's going to be heathens that's going to be making our food, for the exception of Esau, the Edomites. I'm not going to have any Edomites making my food. But, I mean, Lord's will, I'm of the elect. I hope to be of the elect, the 1/3. But, man, you know, in the kingdom, you know, it's going to be all this food, all these cakes and all these cookies, these different lawful foods, giraffe meat, you know, ox meat, oxtail, you know, buffalo meat, you know, buffalo wings. And guess what? You're not going to have to pay for not a single one of it. How about that? And that's going to be in the kingdom of heaven. Okay, if you're an Israelite, you're not going to have to pay for any food, because guess what? We're going to be able to grow our own food. And we ain't going to be paying for our own food. Hell nah. Fuck nah. Okay, so, you know, and then it's gonna be real food. It's not gonna be GMO. It's gonna be real food. So think about that. You know, man. Then, you know, there's gonna be lawful foods that we haven't ate before that we're gonna be able to eat. Man, so we just gotta be patient, brothers. 'Cause being in this kingdom is vexing. You know, all this lawful food is lawful to eat. You know, and it all just have to go in the trash, because Esau's a wasteful individual. You know. You know, so back in Deuteronomy 28 verse 51, and he shall eat the fruit of thy cattle and the fruit of thy land, and thou shalt be destroyed, and which also shall not leave thee either corn, wine, or oil. Think about that, because during the time of slavery, you know, we didn't get to enjoy these things. Now think about that in today's time, when you work at a restaurant or in a deli department, or you might be a chef, or you might work at a pizzeria. You know, Think about this. Which also shall not leave thee either corn, wine, or oil. Think about that. Okay, the corn can be a metaphor for what? The food that you work hard to eat. I mean, not eat. Salakia, slip of the tongue, not with the heart. Okay, the food that you work hard to cook. Okay, all the chopping you did on the vegetables, the fruit, all of that stuff that you worked hard for. Think about that. Which shall not leave thee neither corn. So guess what? All that food that you worked hard for, if it did not sell, you have to throw it out. So guess what? He's not gonna leave you corn or wine or oil or the increase of thy kind. Okay? And what comes from kind? Beef, okay? You got steak, chops, all that shit got to go in the trash by the end of the night. You can't even eat it. So, and he shall eat the fruit of thy cattle and the fruit of thy land until thou be destroyed, which also shall not leave thee neither corn, wine, or oil. Meaning, at the end of your shift, when business closed, you got to throw all that out. So he's not going to leave you any corn or the increase of that kind. He's not going to leave you any meat to eat. If he didn't sell, it's got to go to food waste. It's got to go in the fucking trash. Can you believe that shit? So he's not going to leave you anything to eat or to take home to enjoy. He's not going to do that. Or the flock of thy sheep until he have destroyed thee. Okay, so, I just wanted to share that, something I meditated upon while I was at work, man, because, I was just in the spirit of working, and I just noticed that a lot of the food we cook, it goes right in the trash if it did not sell. You know, we're talking about whole entire trays of chicken fingers just going right in the fucking garbage. Like, why? Why? That's something you can share with your employees by the end of the shift. But you're just going to throw it in the trash? Anyways, with that, I'm going to say, Shalom is on to the next one.